All right, welcome again to the discussion session for Monday, February 24th, 2025. Keith, you want to?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Tonight's agenda, we will have the confirmation of a director appointment for our new fire chief, Kurt Christopher. We will have the recognition of promotion of Steve Kwachek from the Mount Lebanon Fire Department to the rank of deputy chief. We'll have the consideration of a resolution authorizing the destruction of certain municipal records. We do this on an annual basis. In 1989, we adopted a retention and disposition schedule for municipal records that we follow the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission guidelines for that. We'll have the consideration for the award of site work related to the renovation of tennis courts 3 and 4, as well as the consideration for the award of the tennis courts 3 and 4 renovation actual court work. You'll hear about both of those in discussion sessions tonight. We'll have the authorization of the cost for the post-construction flow monitor installations for final reporting and reimbursement for several Alcosan Grove projects. You heard about that at the last discussion session. We'll have the consideration for the award of vehicular detection and accessible pedestrian signal upgrades. Municipality received a grant that will fund 80% of the total project cost. We talked about that at the last discussion session. There's the consideration for the award of the 2025 Brick Street Restoration Program. There's the consideration for the award of the 2025 yearly concrete curb maintenance program. And finally, the consideration to purchase replacement gym equipment for the public safety center. That equipment, most of it is original for the building, I want to say around 2002. So that's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. First item up, second item. We have Get Solar Power Purchase Update. Down.
Things to pass up.
Oh, great.
Cheryl, you're ready. You want to take it, right? This also an eye test. Sorry.
I'm like looking at it, digging now.
Zoom up on the screen.
Yes, I can say the guy has absolutely no gray hair on his head.
I'm sorry, guys. I will only get 2 pages next time.
It's okay, just have a little fun.
Yeah.
So with me, I have Eric Robb from Connect, and Amelia from Get Solar. And I'll be talking about the power purchase agreement update. So let them take it away.
All right, so yep, I'm Eric, this is Amelia. We were here, I think, last year around the same time, where we were talking about the power purchase agreement. We're still working on that project for you guys. And if just like a little background again, this is a joint power purchase agreement proposal with 7 municipalities, including Mount Lebanon. It's a very unique project where normally, Mount Lebanon could go and pursue this on their own, but due to economies of scale with these different municipalities through our project at Connect, we've sort of made it a little bit more financially feasible for this sort of thing to work out. And so just to recap on what a power purchase agreement is. Power purchase agreement essentially is, instead of you purchasing these systems and owning the systems and being responsible for ownership and maintenance, and then coming up with the funds to actually fund the construction of that project, a power purchase agreement is you are essentially leasing space, whether that's public space, whether that's rooftop, for a private developer to come in to build that system for you, and then they create a contract. No different than you guys go out every year, every 5 years, every contract cycle to purchase electricity. They will create a contract where they are producing that energy on your space, and then they are entering into a contract with you to purchase that electricity back from them. Okay, so the idea is that then you don't have to pay that upfront cost. That is all on the developer. The developer then owns and maintains that system as well. And then you are simply just entering into a contract, and they are, and you are getting your electricity at a certain price, fixed price, over 25 or 30 years, whatever the length of the contract is, at a fixed rate, but then there's an escalator. So that's in comparison to what you would normally do, which is to go out every contract cycle and renegotiate a contract with the same company, get a new company to purchase electricity. And usually those escalators, so that rate increases at a different rate than these power purchase agreements. So the idea is really to lock in that rate with a PPA. And you're able to lock it in lower than you are if you keep going out onto the market and shopping for this. So that's the idea. Last time we came to you, we had two options for that provider that would come and build those systems. Right now that we don't have that, the second one showing wasn't looking good financially. And so you guys chose one of those PPA providers. It wasn't you didn't lock yourselves into anything. It was just a preference on what looked best. And that was BAI Group was the PPA provider, okay? So the numbers last time on this chart, that was what is in blue. And so the way that the deal worked was that you guys would save about, or the region itself would save about $1 million. Mount Lebo was just about even. I think you guys were slightly under, and you saved about what's on that blue line right there. We have gone back over the past year and some change because although Mount Lebo was above board, some of those other municipalities were not. They were about 100,000 in the hole, which would make it, sort of nonsensical for them to try to stick with it. They stuck with us programmatically through the process to try to see if something could work out. So that's what we've been doing the past year. Going to philanthropy, working with the PPA provider to see if we could squeeze out a little bit more. And then that is that green line that you see here. So we went back to the drawing board. We added a couple sites to a couple municipalities, and we also took away some sites that were drawing on some of those savings. And so now we have a slightly better rate for Mount Lebanon, and that's sort of what we're doing today. We're just updating you. We're showing you the updated numbers. We're showing you the updated cash flows. And here to answer any questions. We've been doing legal review. Thank you to Phil in the background. That has been extremely helpful with these different municipalities to try to make sure all of our I's are dotted, T's are crossed. But we're here to answer questions, and we're probably going to come back again with final numbers, and then of course, working with the manager and sustainability director and anybody else on staff to lock everything in, and then you guys will be able to make your decision whenever that is. So
Timeline.
Timeline is all these so you're the second municipality in this second round. So this is the first round of updated numbers. You're the second municipality. We've got a couple more to go through. End of March, we should be done with all of them, right? End of March. We should then have final numbers to you after that. And then it's up to you whether you want us to come to council again, whether you can look at these numbers off cycle and make decisions. So by the end of Q2 for sure, that would be the goal. And then the timeline for if this contract is signed, and of course we have to negotiate with BAI, so that might take a bit. But once that contract is signed, construction would not begin until the end of the year, if not beginning of 2026, depending on how fast you guys want to move. And that's also important. Your current contract, your current electricity contract ends at the end of this year, 2025. So it does work out quite well that you would be purchasing, you would be shopping for electricity anyway in the months leading up to that. So this is just one of your options, essentially. So any questions about any of this? Sorry, it's very small, but any questions? I've highlighted Mount Lebo's line. We have the specific cash flows, and then there are some notes of importance. These rates are not final, like I had mentioned. We have some steps to keep going through. Am I missing anything, Amelia?
Yeah, I would just like to point out to what Eric just mentioned, that your supply contract ends at the end of this year. So we did make an assumption that your actual blended rate will be closer to 7 cents or higher, which is what the PPA rate currently is looking like. So for example, your supply charge currently is at 0.0527 cents. You will very likely see an increase closer to 6 cents or even higher. So this was modeled on an assumption that your increase would be 0.056 cents. So I think that that's pretty conservative. So we're going to continue to work with the administrative staff to kind of nail down what your what your next supply contract would look like, and then we can remodel these figures to be closer to what your actual savings will be. So the savings that are projected on this sheet are conservative.
So, question, the developer. So what are our assurances that the developer will continue to maintain the facility, because it's a 25-year contract? And that they're not gonna go under and walk.
So we are going to ask them for all of their financial documents. And I think that we would be able to share that with the folks signing the contract.
Can you do a performance bond on somebody like this? I mean,
It's 25-year performance, not
like.
not really, but
Yeah,
we can put default provisions.
into it in the contract.
I will say that BAI is contracted with a number of school districts and other municipalities and very large projects throughout the state and throughout the region, actually. They are one of the larger solar developers in the region. So I don't think that they are at risk of financial default within the term of the project, especially considering they have a number of other projects throughout this cycle. But if there are financial documents that you would request from them, we can certainly ask for that. And then, Bill, again, has been working as kind of the lead solicitor for the whole cohort. So any of those considerations that we would need to add into the contract, we would be sure to connect with their.
It's structured to, and if it breaks and there's no electricity coming, then we don't owe them any money. And
True,
then,
but
and
then-
then, well, they put something there.
Yeah.
Then you go into the contract for when we can
Yeah.
rip it out, when we can
Fix it and all that
keep
stuff.
the money, keep doing.
Got it. Okay. Just curious.
So Eric, there's a note here. It says Mount Lebanon may be able to keep Act 129 rebate under a BAI contract. But we don't know that yet. When do you think we would know that?
That's gonna be pending negotiations with BAI Group. So we are going to work with them. I think it's been a couple months since we talked to Sel about that.
Yeah, we asked them that a while ago, whenever initially it looked like your project might have been in the red for the first year or two. And they seemed agreeable to that. We don't have it in writing, but we are going to continue to advocate that Mount Lebanon would be able to keep the Act 129 rebate, especially since you all have, kind of put more effort forward in the legal negotiations.
On Phil's end especially, so.
Yeah, so we haven't asked for that for any other municipality because as much money that can go back into that PPA rate will lower the rate. But in this instance specifically, again, we don't have it in writing, but we have mentioned it and we will continue to advocate for that.
Would they incorporate that over the life of the contract, or would that be a one-time upfront?
So it's just a one-time payment. It is based on the year one production of the system. It's just a one-time rebate. So it could, go into, it's kind of icing on the cake. It doesn't necessarily like change the PPA rate to any.
Yeah, I was just
significant
curious as to
degree.
the mechanics of how that would work.
Yeah, I mean, you could put it back into the overall kind of funding of the system and it might, drop the PPA rate by like 0.001 cents or something over the lifetime of the system. But I think it would probably be more impactful to just have that back to the municipality.
And I guess my other question would be from a timing standpoint, if our current supplier agreement expires at the end of 2025 and this infrastructure is not yet constructed for 2026, they would still offer the rate that's
Yeah.
here.
So what Cell has mentioned, Cell is our partner at BAI, who we have been working closely with. What he has mentioned is that even if the we could get the contract signed this year and lock in that 7 cent rate with just 1.5% escalation, where by comparison, the actual utilities usually escalate by 3% or more, especially because you have 5-year contracts. The hope right now is to lock in those contracts and that rate so that even if the construction does start next year, you will have that 7 cent rate locked in.
And in addition, this is not covering 100% of your annual usage. So you will have to be signing an electricity contract anyway. It's just going to be for less power. You're offsetting what you would be paying.
So will we know that split as we go
Yeah,
through?
yes, we have the, it's in the production, what you're able to produce and what's in the contract, yes.
Last question for me, I promise. I know at one point in time, there was a discussion, and Phil can weigh in as to whether or not there was a requirement to bid, which tied into the infrastructure piece.
Yeah.
Part of the contract as originally written had and it's not just Mount Lebanon, had all of the communities actually taking ownership at the end of that 25-year period for the infrastructure, I believe.
I don't believe that, oh yes, after the end of the 25-year period, what there was also was a buyout option.
Like a lease purchase. or
Yes, but
buyout.
that would come into effect after only 5 years, and then
Oh.
someone could purchase that. However, and I will let Phil speak to this piece much more in depth.
I was gonna say, one of the solicitors didn't really like that, I mean, it looked too much.
Like it's a construction contract, yeah.
So we talked about taking it out, and I didn't see a problem taking it out. Matter of fact, that pushes it actually much more to all you're doing is really just buying.
Buying electricity.
And in the contract, we would make sure that it doesn't preclude these parties from making a deal like that. It's just not explicitly written in there.
It's not part of the contract.
Right.
So you can,
Okay.
that would just be a further discussion however many years down the
Yeah,
road.
I would say if it goes to 25 years and
There's really little value to
it's still running and they don't want it, we can talk to them.
being familiar with that technology at the
Well,
25-year mark.
Neither will I.
Most of these systems are lasting 30 to even 40 years.
Yeah, you do see some drop in efficiency.
A little bit, but we actually modeled that in, we do model that like slate inefficiency throughout the cash flow model. So all of the projected savings are accounting for that.
And the advantage, obviously, of a PPA is that they are responsible for making those upgrades or switching the panels out, not you guys. Any questions about the general, about the municipalities, like the regional aspect of this, anything?
And we've always taken a position, I believe that, we realize that Mount Lebanon potentially makes this whole thing work for a lot of the other communities just because of the
Yeah.
size of some of the projects that we would have. We wanted to try to take that regional leadership position. As we think it's good for a lot of communities.
Yeah, yeah, not only are the sizes of the systems larger as an anchor, but also again, the fact that you all were able to help out with the legal review has really made this project work. I think we mentioned this last time, but this is kind of the first of its kind joint procurement. So thank you for your patience because there have just been a lot of hurdles that, unknowns that we had to jump through, but yeah, you all as leaders pushing this forward has really made this happen.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
We don't.
Ready to roll?
You're
Let's do
rolling.
it.
Okay,
Tennis
good
court,
evening, everybody.
construction.
So I am going to be reviewing the courts 3 and 4 renovation project. And in front of you, there are.
Honest your audience.
And we're done.
The 1 minute.
This is not sewers, right? I was all fired up about that KPA.
I have 7 words out of my pen before.
This is for courts 3 and 4, the renovation project, and there's 2 recommendations in front of you, and one is for the site work, which was bid out, and the other one is for the court surface work itself, which was procured through CoStar's contract. So a brief summary of the work, we're gonna be doing some improvements around the outside of the court to improve the drainage. And we'll be doing some concrete work that would be covered by the site contractor. Who they'll essentially get in and do their site work first. Their plan is to do that work late spring and have that completed by June 1st. For the tennis court, the Hartrue contractor to come in and do that work. So the low bidder for the project for the site work is Nick Paulus Plumbing and Construction. That is the same contractor that completed the work last year. And their base bid amount was $84,973.25. And the contract amount for the Hartrue surface work is $330,546.94. Combining that total was $415,520. The budgeted amount for this work was $450,000 for the CIP, so we're under budget. Collectively, so order of operations, site contractor comes in, does their work. Hartrue contractor, who is Keystone Sports Construction, comes in and does their surface work. Both are the same contractors that did the work last year, so we have homogeneous contractors there, which will essentially provide value. Keystone is holding the same price that they performed this work for last year, so that's also a plus.
And it's the last set of courts.
It's the last set of courts.
Phase 3.
Phase 3 of the court renovation, and from a big picture perspective, we're doing the court work for courts 3 and 4. There's gonna be lighting improvements around all the courts that are gonna happen, that'll follow the completion of this work. These items are these will be under a separate contract. But there'll be pickleball conversions. I think that's on courts 1 and 2. And then there'll be fence improvements towards the end of the year. So we're coordinating all those different pieces together so that it's limiting the amount of downtime that is gonna happen associated with this work. So that being said, are there any questions from anyone associated with this project?
Not for me, but.
Not for me.
Thank you. You hanging?
I'm sorry.
You hanging for the street program?
I'm gonna hang up here.
Come out.
Okay, all right.
So you wanna join?
Yeah.
You brought the closer with you here.
That's right.
Yeah.
Perfect, okay. I'm with you. Hi.
Sure. Yeah.
What?
I got paper copies of PowerPoint,
Oh,
but I'll be on screen.
Yeah, it's up right.
Alright, so that time of the year, I'm sure you used to seeing a different face. But I've been working with Matt since I started at Gateway on my Lebanon Road program, so almost 10 years now. So fairly familiar with it. Can't believe it's been 10 years already. So it does. So we can go ahead and get started for 2025. All right, current road conditions. So this is from Street Saver. You can see, that's why I provided the paper copy. It's easier to see the road conditions. So our current PCI is 77. Interesting is the surface type, which is so over here, so this is surface type. So the red is, this is concrete and brick, it's mostly brick at this point, which is like 13%. And then these two blues are our full depth asphalt streets. So that's at over 50% now. I think it's at 55. And then we just have, about 30% left that is asphalt over concrete or asphalt over brick. So getting there. For our proposed program statistics, which is the PCI, the pavement condition index. So like I said, the current is at 77. So our average PCI of the base bid road programs for the reconstruction, we're at about 45.5. And for the street maintenance program, it's around 64. For the alternate bid roads, the average PCI for reconstruction is 53. It's a little higher. And then street maintenance program is about 57. The reason for the street maintenance program, the base bid slightly higher is you're going to see we're focusing more on those high traffic streets because you want to really address those before those get to a very poor PCI.
Rudy,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
sure.
I meant to call you earlier and say, give me a crash course in the PCI numbers again.
Okay.
Can you do it verbally?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so
like, what's a good, I'm just
So-
can't remember.
As far as how they're developed or,
No, our number,
No, our numbers and.
our target number.
Target numbers,
that.
just to, I'm
Was,
sorry.
I believe it was, the low end was, or the high end was 65-ish.
55 was high, 60 was the minimum.
For resurfacing. Because those are streets that are in decent condition with the exception of the wearing surface and part of the binder. So that's a
Okay.
maintenance practice where we're going to overlay
Right.
that section.
Got it, okay.
Once they drop below that, and they're in that 50 and below range, now it's a reconstruction. It's typically
Okay.
structural with drainage and those issues that we
Right.
want to address by digging the entire street up.
And what is our overall target for PCI for the whole network?
I don't think we ever stated one for the overall network. I mean, we've kind of floated around that 70 to 75, 78 over the last several years.
That's where it's been, but that's been higher than what our target number was. We
Yeah.
benefited from a fairly good amount of utility restoration.
Yeah.
We always kind of set closer to the 68 number.
And these-
But isn't like our bid was 60, like somewhere.
Minimum.
We've
Yeah,
talked
60.
about, right.
But obviously, yes, we would benefit higher than.
And these numbers, Ashley and I, we had a conversation the other day about this. We're about 3 or 4 years out from our last actual evaluation of the paved surface as well. So these are based on assumptions and curves of the degradation of the pavement.
Yeah.
They aren't actual physical
Just
numbers.
looking at it,
Every
yeah.
4 to 5 years, we send someone out to actually physically look at the streets
fair enough.
and give us numbers on it.
Yeah. Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Well,
Just like.
No,
Good to make sure I'm on my credit,
that's it.
A lot of numbers, yeah. And you can see how we benefited. I'm sure Matt talked about this last year, like the utility restoration work.
Oh, yeah.
It was a lot. Last year was only about a mile. We have on
That's on
record.
my street.
Oh.
Lucky me.
Well, all
There are
right.
some things that they didn't follow up yet on too. The construction season went into winter, so
Yeah,
they temporarily patched it, and there's gonna be a lot of that that's gonna show up from last year's program on this year's
you can see it.
Yeah.
on the streets.
restoration.
Yeah, so we use program development, we use Street Saver kind of to get a preliminary list over based on 2 to 3 years of the same budget. But we also, there's a lot of other factors besides the software. So we do paved. We ride all the streets that are developed from either Rudy and Public Works will provide us with a list since they drive the streets almost every day. As well as any flooding issues. We review the icing list,
Right.
any icing conditions, utility coordination, which we'll talk about, and then kind of looking at continuation of previous programs, which a lot of these streets are continuation of previous programs or just were fit as alternates over the past couple of years. So for our street selection for the road reconstruction, we got about 0.56 miles in the base bid, and the alternate is about a third of the miles. So we'll go through, you can see the PCI, the length, classification, begin and end, but we also provided the maps in your packet.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so we're just gonna go alphabetically, base bid.
I was gonna ask, actually, as you mentioned alphabetically, for the items that are, if there's extra money available, if you will, I assume you'd look at that by PCI, because let's say there's money left for reconstruction. In Austin, because the PCI is 22, but the next one, let's say be Pin Oak, is 58.
Not necessarily.
Actually, what we try to do, and I think what we try to break these alternates up so that they're different lengths and different widths.
Mhm.
Okay.
That gives us parts of the puzzle that can fit in. We don't know what the unit prices are gonna be or the individual streets. So if we do have that situation where we're under our budget number, then we can plug parts in to make it fit. So, that's why we have some shorter segments and some longer.
Right.
But we don't particularly, well, these all need done. We know that. They're grouped as a group of streets that need done.
Right.
How that happens really depends on how they're bid.
So
What
as
type-
many whole segments is.
Right, and what the cost of that each segment is and how it adds up to that total number.
Sure, okay, all right, thank you.
So Batten Way, it was bid actually as alternate in 2024 that didn't get awarded. It's an alley between Baywood and Magnolia, and it's severely deteriorating, as you can see in the pictures. So trying to get that addressed this year. Craig Court, probably very familiar to many of you. So it was over the past 2 years, it was bid as an alternate in 23 and 24. Fairly short section. It's only like about 200 feet cul-de-sac. I think it serves a few apartments in the cul-de-sac region, but kind of looking to address that brick street there.
So let's stop and talk about that one for a minute, because I know Ann's gonna stop you anyway.
Yeah.
She's
All
gonna
right.
jump on it.
You're good.
It is a brick street. The proposal here would be to put it back in asphalt,
Right.
because they disconnected brick street in the sense that there's no other streets in close proximity that are actually brick. And I don't believe that, I don't think there's any historic structures that abut
Yeah.
Craig Court.
I only have one question about it. I already knew all that because I already looked at it and Rudy and I have had long conversations about
That
it.
you had.
Rudy and I are best friends, really. Just want to say that. Anyway.
Now I just.
feel that way.
Probably not. Can we save the bricks?
If you look at those, I'm not
Some of them
sure
are
how much,
bad.
yeah,
I know.
it looks pretty bad.
Yeah.
Typically you're gonna lose 30 to 40%
Yeah.
anyway, but we'll
But-
see what we can do. Sure. We'll
Yeah.
Make that.
I just wanted to make sure that was in the bid. That was. the whole
Yeah,
thing.
we've
They
done
have
that
to-
before.
Have to save the bricks as much as they can.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's my only question there.
Yeah, and we'll be sure to add that. So, okay, Craig, and then next brick street coming up, which many of you are familiar with, is Crystal Drive. So we're only doing the shorter, making it blacktop because of the safety concern with it being such a steep street, as well as utility went in, is it this year? Or last year?
Last year,
Last
funded,
year.
yeah.
Still,
There's still, still working on it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
so,
they did restore the brick section, the upper brick section, so that's completed.
Good.
But the slope section where we are gonna remove and replace that with a full depth asphalt street. That was part of what we discussed last year,
Right,
where they're gonna contribute to the reconstruction of that, a portion of it. We
right.
haven't settled on a final number yet, but last year that we had a cooperative program with them on Oregon Trail. They contributed $50,000 towards the reconstruction of that street. we worked with People's Gas last year on Mapleton, and they contributed $150,000 towards that project. So it offsets our cost of reconstruction.
Did they fix the higher part of Crystal? Like there were areas where like large gaps between driveways and brick?
We are going to, if you remember, you asked us, and we put that in the base bid. We're gonna replace all the curbing, the upper half with staying brick.
Yeah.
We're gonna be redoing that now. Columbia Gas, Fasciano, restored the trench line. There's other sections in that Brook Street that have some, they have some dips and things like that. So we can address that with our maintenance contract, but we'll probably hold off until next year to do that. Unless it's really absolutely necessary, if we have some dangerous stuff there.
Cause I know there's like cold patch getting into people's driveways and stuff.
That's probably for the curb sections that
Yeah,
we're missing.
that you're
And we're
gonna-
gonna replace all the concrete curbs on both sides of that street
Yeah.
and leave it brick. From where
Yeah.
it kind of flattens off at the lower
Right.
Gypsy,
Yeah.
where it intersects with Gypsy.
Yeah.
From there up, it's gonna stay brick and we're gonna replace both sections of curb.
Right.
Is there a
With
way to
this
get, is there a
program.
way to get that done? Cause that, once you close that road, there's no in or out there. That's just that, you know what I mean? There's no way around
Or,
to get the curbs and stuff done.
Gypsy.
well, we're reconstruct, we're reconstructing the entire bottom too, don't forget. So it's gonna be dug up. I mean,
Oh, I
from
see.
the lower section of Gypsy where it comes out down towards the back,
Yeah,
Baptist home, all the way down to Castellano Boulevard.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna completely excavate that. New drainage, new curbs both sides,
Right.
asphalt,
Yeah, so
asphalt.
like, can
cross-section.
we get the curbs done at the same time? Because that road, once you shut that one piece
Oh, yeah.
down, there's no.
Yeah,
in
no,
and
no,
out
no,
there.
no. They'll do the curb. Once they start on the curbs are gonna be, curbs and drainage will be step one.
But
yeah.
not just the lower
Phase
part, he's asking about.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm asking.
Correct, yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right.
And any
But not till
driveway
next year, you're
aprons,
saying.
no, this year.
Oh.
No, this, the curbs will all get done this year.
Any additional brickwork on the flat part?
Yeah.
He's saying will probably be
Next year.
Next year.
2026 unless there's a serious dip, and then we'll address it through this year's
In
program.
this,
Right.
in the carway.
But
In
the
the
the-
carway
curbs are
itself.
gonna be done.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah, the brick surface,
That's
yes.
fine. Yeah.
It's,
I'm just worried, like the complaints that I get are from people who have a hard time getting into their driveway.
okay, well, we're gonna address that with the new concrete curb.
Okay,
That will be
Got it.
addressed.
gotcha. Thanks.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think it's nearly 1,000 linear foot.
It's a
of
lot.
brick. Yeah.
It's a lot.
so
Yeah.
2,000
It's all
linear
brick
feet of
here.
curb.
Right.
That's a good bit.
Is it the same depth as the yellow bricks that are on the other streets?
The older bricks are, yeah, the dimensions are the same.
Same,
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So getting this one from the list and just so worked out with the utility company. So next is gonna be, like I said, a lot of these streets are continuation of previous programs, and one of those being Helen Drive. Last year we did, so half of the Dollar General driveway entrance down towards, Banksville Road. And then you can even see, we've done a lot of this area like Theoden, Helen over the past few years. So this small little section will kind of wrap up that neighborhood. That,
Of course it is.
and then another continuation is Old Hickory Road. This one, we did the previous section of Old Hickory back in 2015. So nearly 10 years ago as well. So we're gonna finish Old Hickory. It's nearly 1,000 feet. But we talked and we believe this, given the location, you can come up, street down, so won't be too much interference with the neighborhood, given the excavation and time needed for the contractors to complete the work. And then we're also gonna kind of the icing issue that we addressed 10 years ago, so just extending that on this street as well, on this section.
We'll run some additional storm infrastructure up.
Yeah. Yeah, there's those inlets, things like that side here. Yeah, there's a couple inlets, 2 inlets here. So
Mhm.
we'll address storm sewer extension and drainage work using those 2. Ordale, looking drainage improvements. So this one made it onto the list. I mean, it is fairly deteriorating, but also the drainage improvements that we've been working on. So I have here, kind of our preliminary concept. Josh has been working on it for addressing the flooding on 212 Mohawk, which is right here. So trying to capture drainage coming down Fordale as well as on Mohawk. And then tying it into, there's a 36-inch,
Yep.
36-inch line here that it'll all discharge into. So we're gonna bid that as an alternate drainage in the reconstruction program and see what the pricing comes out to. Should be hopefully better rates.
Yeah, I think we'll be able to get a better unit price just based on the higher quantities in one area.
So you're doing drainage, but you're not resurfacing or you're?
That'll be reconstructed, so that's why we're gonna.
I know, it just didn't
That'd be
say.
fine.
Representation means it's an asphalt over brick.
I was gonna ask you
All of
about
it's
that.
asphalt over brick?
That's what I was asking, is the asphalt brick, so what does that mean there?
Yeah, no, that means the existing, we're still on these are all reconstruction streets. Yeah, we're still on the
But
reconstruction.
the original composition of the street was brick. We overlaid it with asphalt at some point. correct?
Yeah,
Reconstruction will go back in as, asphalt.
Are the bricks to be pulled out or they were used as the sub
We
base?
tried that, so God, I don't know how many years ago that was. We tried once to scrape the asphalt off the brick.
Yeah.
We tried it once.
Not bad.
It's, yeah.
Yeah, typically, if that street was milled, which I have to assume if it was a brick-based street, it's anytime in the past, the milling head would have hit those bricks on the top. So as they milled the old asphalt off to put a new coat on,
Round off part
it
of the
just,
bricks.
yeah, it would have put milling marks in the surface of the bricks.
Okay.
They go down until they hit the bricks.
Bricks, denigrates bricks.
Yep.
What a shame.
so going on to the alternates is Austin Avenue, so that was bid as an alternate, last year and the year before as well, so it's just a small section, it's only like 260 feet, but kind of addressing the,
Off the bar hill.
yep, yeah. Yeah, going into Terrace View there, so trying to address that. Peyton Drive, so this is asphalt over concrete street. And we paved, it starts at Sondre, which we paved a few years back. And then we've done a few sections of Pat Haven. So kind of wrapping up this area would be good, and you can just see the deterioration, and it's a steep hillside too, so. That. Pin Oak, this is near the school there where, Old Hickory is. So this was billed as an alternate in 2024 as well, so we want to get it back on the list. If we do have extra money, like Rudy mentioned, getting some of these streets awarded based on the unit prices that come in. Pembroke Drive, this was kind of a continuation of last year. We paved, or we reconstructed Pembroke up near Oxford. So this one is from Clemson to Moreland. And Moreland, we've done, I think Clemson, we also took from a concrete street to reconstruction. So similar area there that's been reconstructed. So we get that. And then Eisenhower Drive has recently added alternates. It's one of the few concrete streets. So this is a short section. It's only 200 feet, but it's the only concrete, and you can just see the joints, how we've had to fill them in with asphalt over the years, just because they're separating and
Expand.
yeah, expand. Yep, especially with our winters. So, yeah, trying to finish up those concrete streets.
Austin, sorry, Austin's, whose ward is that? Yours, Andrew? Austin,
I think it's Andrew.
Andrew, you paying attention? Is Austin your ward?
Yeah.
Does it have a sidewalk? We're reconstructing the street? Or about how we put the street in?
Oh, very much so. The residents, well, this is a whole discussion. The residents on this, the section right next to that.
Yeah.
Just asked for a study. The study came back under the 85th percentile. We've asked for it to be, traffic speeds to be done again when it's warmer.
Right,
It is a thoroughfare for students and for people going to Jefferson.
right.
Yeah, they want traffic calming. They are not necessarily asking for sidewalks. This section right here, I don't know, depending on the trees, it might be an issue, it might not, I'm not sure. But further down is where we have those really big trees where
Right,
if we were going to do traffic calming and but it would be narrowing
sure.
because there is no sidewalk base. So this is a tricky one. I think it's something that I would like the mobility board to, and us to talk about.
You're pulling that curb right there. That would slow things down right away. It can't whip around it when they pull it in. It just seems to me if we're gonna reconstruct streets and there are streets that people wanna have calm, should we be talking about the design at this point? Well,
It's funny you should say that. I just sent documents to the manager and the assistant manager, and Commissioner, Siegler, about revising our traffic calming policy to be a street reconstruction and design policy. So that we are looking at this holistically because it's this type of situation where it's time.
right now, if you have to reconstruct it,
Right.
you pull it in right there now.
And this should have been done a year ago so that when it's time, it's already on the plan. It's just a question of when we do it. Rather than asking them to stop and go through a whole assessment of what's the appropriate traffic calming for the area, because we need to address this little space right here. So I'm not opposed to pulling this back and saying, well, let's look at it. You know, pulling this back this year and saying, do it next year because we want to look at it this year.
Yeah, an alternate.
Right, yeah, I hesitate to try to jam through something right now.
Yeah, I understand.
We got the other question, I'm just looking at the PCI on this is 22. And so back to your point of waiting another year for streets that already is.
But,
Pretty bad.
but it slows it down too when it's not in great shape. I mean, if there's really a traffic calming problem, that's one way to do it. Put holes in it. Sorry, it's true, right?
It's true.
Yeah, and this, honestly, this really isn't where the speeding problem is,
Okay.
because this is the downhill going into Bower
This is
Hill.
that short section right
Yeah,
before you get to
yeah, I
Bower.
think I know what you're talking about, but,
So we have multiple policies here, and from an overall complete
Yeah.
streets.
Yeah.
We need to figure out a way to pull all of these things together, right? Because we've got the sidewalk expansion policy sitting out there.
right,
We've got the active transportation plan, which
Right.
we will hopefully
have an
have
update on
completed today, this year, today. I'm a little
Cool.
optimistic.
Awesome.
Ian will fill you in on that next meeting. And then we've got our street reconstruction program.
Right.
So we need to find a way to
Realistic.
pull all of those things together so that when we're putting this together on an annual basis, we're thinking about all of these pieces. And the other piece that I won't even, no, I will mention it just because you will if I don't, is the question that we've had the discussion about the undergrounding of utilities, right?
Yes, yes.
So there are
Sure.
a lot of independent
Moving
pieces
parts,
sitting out
yeah.
here that we need to figure out a way to pull them all together.
Right.
And on the undergrounding of utilities, Dan has already made contact with Duquesne Light. The next step may be to actually bring somebody in here from Duquesne Light so that we would understand the process, the costs, maybe just pick a street to give us what would it look like if we wanted to
Right,
do it here?
Yeah, can we add that?
So that we
discussion?
had- Yeah.
The transformers have to
I've got
go,
a note.
they're big transformers.
A list. Yeah.
It's not quite.
To try to, again, pull all of these things together
Yeah.
so that we're taking a comprehensive look to the whole complete streets
Yeah.
policy and how does
What
all of
Mr.
this
Flynn is
work.
looking at, which is well needed and.
Yeah, and for Gateway's edification, what we're trying to do is just say, look, if we're gonna tear up the street, let's make sure that we're in the best position as opposed to getting to this point where it's basically just a conversation about, we have 50 feet of asphalt, let's replace it with 50 feet of asphalt, right? What do we want the street to be before it gets to this stage? Right, so that whether it's sidewalks or it's undergrounding or it's sewers right, there's a whole range of things in the whole right of way. But because the budget is what it is, this is the time to have this conversation. So how do we get ahead of, it's time to put it on the list. And so that's a policy that I'm working on drafting at the moment.
Oh, good, okay. Well, just wanted to bring up the awesome number. Look at that curve, but that will, maybe in. Slow it down right away.
So it's an alternate, so you
Yeah,
don't
so
have to
hopefully,
yeah.
No,
We'll
we
see
got
what
a
they're.
policy that's not working. We got a policy that's not working. Now we gotta remove one and replace it with another. The Lord. Oh, my Lord. Spelling of it.
All right, so to wrap up the program and the budget and our opinion of probable cost, budget for this year was increased, so 2.275 million. Plus stormwater supplement, as well as the utility contribution that Rudy talked about on Crystal. Our opinion of probable cost is just under 2 million, so give some buffer for ordering some alternates and just flexibility in case higher unit costs come in. So got the breakdown of the curb work, reconstruction, general stormwater work, and then additional drainage improvements. So the additional drainage improvements is like the additional curb work on Crystal. So just to put that in perspective of the higher value there. And so the alternate bid, streets come in, like Rudy mentioned, we try to get a variety of lengths and costs so we can mix and match as appropriate. So you can see we've got on the low end with Eisenhower, 116,000. We have flexibility, Pin Oak coming in at nearly 380,000. So flexibility with the alternates is always important. Okay, and then that kind of wraps up the reconstruction program. So we're going to move on to the street maintenance or the mill and overlay. So this budget was increased a good bit this year, so we were able to get nearly 1.28 miles on the base bid, and the alternate is about 2/3 of a mile. So you can see our streets are focused on a lot of the high traffic ones such as Beverly, Lindendale, Sleepy Hollow, North Meadow Croft, Woodland. Yep, Woodland. So we're gonna start with Beverly, going alphabetical order. So that's actually an asphalt over concrete. So this section, it's only 300 feet, but it's pretty severely deteriorated. You can see in the photos. From Marlin Drive East to Marlin Drive West. So getting that one repaved.
Mill and overlay?
Yep, mill and overlay.
These are all known.
That's what I figured, so make sure.
And we'll be doing the curb work in advance of that as well. So concrete curb sections that
Yeah.
are deteriorated will replace like we do every year.
Any icing problems with these?
I think we really had much on these, no.
Nope, and I mean, we did our site visit, as you can see, it was
Yeah,
snowy, so.
Yeah.
Perfect time to identify that. Catalpa Place, this was actually bid as an alternate, past 2 years, so putting it in the base bid this year. Even though it's definitely a longer street at nearly, was it 900 linear feet. So we're doing a lot more longer streets with our mill and overlay program too. Cedar Boulevard, so this is from Hollycrest to Morgan. Last year, we paved, starting at Cochrane over the public work. So we're just kind of addressing all of Cedar. Even the year before, we've done, what did we do near Florida?
Yeah, the water company did a big chunk of that, the bottom section from Gilkison up to Beetling, just a little bit beyond Beetling. So we're picking up that next section where we did that project for the crossing between Morgan Drive, Greenhurst and Salem. So we're gonna pick that up this year. Now, I had a conversation with the water company, just pre-planning and so forth. They're planning to replace a water main from Salem up to Cochrane next year. So, yeah, we planned on doing that this year. I kind of worked that into the budget numbers last year. However, if they're gonna do that, we're not gonna pave it because they're gonna pave it for us when we're finished. And it'd be silly to pave it and then rip it up to put a new water line in. They've had several breaks there in that area around Long Ridge and just between Long Ridge and Salem over the last few years. Yeah, just right down around Cedar, right? So,
Appreciate you working the timing on that.
it
Thank
worked
you.
out pretty well.
Yeah, okay.
Got that one before it.
Yep.
Went through.
So we're gonna work on this section while they do the, going up towards Cochran. So Lindendale, this has been on the bid as alternate 2023. It's also a longer street at nearly 1,000 linear feet. So you've got from Kurt Drive to 1022 Lindendale. So getting this one addressed since it's been in previous programs. And it's also a full depth asphalt street as well, so. North Meadowcroft Avenue. So we paved, was it 2 years ago, Rudy?
We paved a section of Meadowcroft last year.
Was it last year? Yeah. Old Blending, yeah, Twin Hills towards
We've been
Green.
picking pieces of that off each
Yep.
year, just working our way through there, trying to pick the worst sections up.
Yep, and this is one of the worst sections that came up was from Twin Hills to Ken Forest. So you can see by the photos, the deterioration along the road, especially. Since it's one of a high travel street. Oxford Boulevard, so this was also an alternate in the road program the past 2 years, asphalt over concrete. So we really want to mill and overlay it since it's, you say it's a fairly driven street, pretty,
Yes.
No.
not-
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a.
no, it's not like Sleepy Hollow or
Yeah,
anything,
right.
yeah. Yeah, but since it's
We get
been on a
fair amount of
program,
Traffic, because it connects with Upper St. Clair on the lower end down there, so.
yeah, so putting it on the base bid this year. Sleepy Hollow, so this is a full depth that was reconstructed, I just looked it up nearly 25 years ago. So good life expectancy with 25 years, so just addressing this one, getting it mill and overlaid from, this is from Richland to Valley Park.
And real quick on this, Rudy, I had complaints from residents, so I drove up on Old Farm, right in the 267 to 273 area.
Is that
right in-
upper section right,
Yeah,
right on?
right in the corner we're talking about
We
here.
have that as an alternate.
Yeah, I saw. So if we're not able to get that over the line,
Mhm.
we need to take a look at doing fixes there,
Okay,
like more immediately. They've got pothole
patching
issues.
and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the speed hump right there, yeah, so, okay,
It's on Old Farm though.
okay, well,
It's
okay.
as soon as you make a right.
So if you're on
Bradford.
Bradfordton, you make a right onto Old Farm. You've got 260,
Right before Highview.
263, 267, up to like 273.
In that first little block, 'cause we,
It's like the first
Yep,
floor,
we're
yeah.
going.
yeah, because we
Yeah.
reconstructed, I don't know, maybe 8, 10 years ago, Old
Yeah.
Farm from Highview out to, Fruithurst.
Yeah, take a look up there though.
Okay.
Maybe you could drive by, because if, you know, like, I don't know what's gonna happen with this and if this gets over on the alternate,
Yeah.
you know, but if it doesn't,
We're still gonna have to patch it
we'll need to
because,
put, yeah.
yeah, we're not
They just
gonna,
had to
this
put-
isn't until June, July,
Yeah, yeah.
until school's out.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Thanks.
Okay, take care of it. Once the plant's open, we're gonna need hot asphalt for that, so we've been patching with winter mix where we have to.
Yeah.
But that stuff, as soon as we get it with the plows, yeah, it's in front yards. We try and, we use it if we have to, and we're out every single day, but I prefer to use hot asphalt when the plant's open up.
When do the plants open? Just curious.
It just, yeah, it just depends on the weather. Yeah,
Around May 1st, roughly.
yeah.
Kind of wrapping up the base bids for the mill and overlay program, lastly is Woodland Drive. So this is going from Wainwright to Vermont, about 600 feet. Kind of experiencing a lot of weathering, deterioration along the edge. You can kind of see in the photos, and it's a pretty main freeway. Vermont. Yeah, this is- yeah.
Around the corner.
And you're gonna be putting sidewalks in.
This, I was gonna say, this would be an
It's gonna be
area
a sidewalk.
to the sidewalk display,
Yeah.
the coordination.
This section, doesn't this already have sidewalks?
A
This is the
little bit
upper
of it does, but it's
Little.
patchy, kind of patchy. It's like a couple of houses that
Yeah.
have sidewalks, a couple don't. Weird.
Yeah, I'll have to look at the map again. for
Yeah.
that.
I just
thought we
wanna-
Covered that last block, I thought
Yeah.
we had, from Wainwright to MacArthur, no,
No.
but from MacArthur up, we did.
My memory was patchy, that the memory isn't always there, you know?
Well, the only reason I say that is because about 15 years ago, we did MacArthur.
Uh-huh.
We put sidewalks in that last block from Wainwright where it wraps up
Yeah, yeah,
around
yeah.
over to Woodland. to make a connection between that neighborhood and
Sure.
then Woodland
Yeah,
had sidewalks all the way up to Vermont.
okay.
So I thought there was a continuous path. That was to close that gap
Yeah,
on
I
that
understand.
street.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm just going by memory, that's all.
Just make sure you tell me what you're doing so I go out of town. Just kidding, I'll be here.
But we'll coordinate that. That's not, that shouldn't be an issue. That's just a mill and overlay, so that's not a
That's,
problem.
yeah, quick.
That's a couple days.
Yeah.
A week.
Yeah.
Don't go far.
Short vacation in.
Yeah, but don't-
Short vacation,
Don't go
don't
far.
go for
Yeah,
long.
don't
Yeah,
plan
got
a
it.
long trip.
All right, so on to the alternates. Pretty familiar to you guys, the Bower Alley over the past 2 years has been an alternate. It's a concrete street because it's an alley that serves a lot of apartment building condos with the garages,
Yeah.
so we're gonna see what the unit prices come in this year to get it topped with asphalt. And then go from there.
The plan is to mill that down a little bit, just to
Yeah.
get, and then scratch coat and wearing course. Just so we can match all the elevations of the curbs and the gutter
Sure.
lines and the drainage and so forth.
Does asphalt last longer than concrete?
In this area, well, it depends, how the concrete was installed.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, you should, I would say life expectancy of concrete's probably a little bit longer, but it's more expensive to put in and more expensive
yeah.
to replace.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't have good drainage, I think that's what we're seeing in some of these areas with
Yeah.
concrete base. We're getting heaving because there's no drainage
No
and the water
drainage,
freezes
yeah.
and especially
That's
this
it.
year, you
Yeah.
see more heaving.
You usually lose it at the joints first.
Right.
Yes, yeah, sure.
So on an alternate is a very short piece of Cedar Boulevard, near the Public Works entrance at Lindendale. So the water company did that previously, starting at, it's like around 1183. And so paving up, to Lindendale, so just trying to get that continuation.
The water company did the vast majority of this all the way up to Mayfair, but this is a small piece where they didn't install the water line.
Yep.
So we want to just finish that piece off.
Sure.
Connect the pieces.
Next, kind of continuation also of previous utility work and also our work, is Larchdale Drive, so near, Raw Polo with the school that's right there. You can see it's actually, I just noticed, oh, yeah, it is a full depth asphalt street, so going in, getting that mill and overlaid. We also did Raw Polo a couple years ago. There was, yeah, Arrowwood's been done a lot by the utility company. I think the Larchdale, where you can kind of see in one of the photos here where the utility company paved. There we go. So this photo, you can see that new pavement joint line. So, and then we're going down the hill. So it'll be a nice, smooth, new pavement, new asphalt transition down towards the school. So,
If this makes the cut, it'll be after school's out.
Right.
yes, yeah, good. And then onto that Old Farm Road in Brackerton. So we decided to bid these two, because they are short sections, as one. So normally we would break those out as separate alternates, but we're gonna build that, I'm gonna call it an L shape, with a total of, it's about 500 linear feet. So you've got the speed hump. There's one speed hump on Brackerton. And then, as he mentioned, there is the bad potholing on Old Farm Road right before Highview. So kind of addressing those deteriorations along this street.
And you put the speed humps back in.
Yes, yeah, those were the,
Just an assumption, I want to make sure I was right.
yeah.
Contractor's responsible.
Yeah.
Another street is Ruth Street. We decided to put on the mill and overlay. It's near, school as well. So schools are very popular places for these programs, but they're also high traffic areas. So important to get those addressed. So Ruth Street is definitely a longer one. It's nearly 1,000 linear feet. So depending what the unit prices come in, that's why this is an alternate. So as Rudy mentioned, variable of lengths on the alternate, bid program. And lastly is St. Clair Drive. So you've got from Washington, the cul-de-sac has been on alternate the past 2 years. Just kind of addressing the street deterioration along the cul-de-sac end. So the budget for this year's resurfacing was $634,110. Our base bid, opinion of probable cost is coming in just a little lower at $575,000. So hopefully providing flexibility for adding some alternate bids. So I got a couple of the alternate bids as low as $17,000 with that short cedar section, all the way up to nearly almost $70,000 with Ruth Street. So just providing flexibility for if the unit costs come in low, just how we award those alternate bid streets. And just to kind of wrap it all up, just a summary of the asphalt index. It's a good idea for how asphalt prices come in. So you can see it is slightly, like, it's lowered over the past couple of years, so.
Trending in the right direction.
Yes, it is
Cost
trending,
perspective.
yes,
That's good.
trending for cost. So, yeah, I was happy to see it was down. I was like, oh, down only by like 15, but still it's over 50 from the past 2 years. If you look. So, they're trending right
I like
direction.
the trend line.
So that kind of wraps up this year's 2 road programs. Any questions, comments? I think I got a lot of good input.
But on one of the documents that was in commission packets, there is the anticipated schedule that's on the back.
Yes.
So when the ad would go out in the paper, when the bid opening was, the review of the bids with commission will remember that once we have commission approval for the streets that would be to be part of the program, both for reconstruction and mill and overlay, that starts our notification process where we post those on the website. We send letters to all of the impacted residents, directing them to check the website frequently for updates to that schedule. And then there's the normal notification that's required in the contract by the contractor before they begin work. So Rudy will sort of refresh all your memories as we get a little further down from a notification standpoint how that works.
Okay.
Thanks.
We got boards and authorities.
Resiliency has not met since our last meeting, but we will meet Wednesday. Planning. Nothing. Very exciting. I know.
We got.
I already gave you guys the kind of summary update of working on updating the traffic calming policy. Right, the goal being to
Yeah.
essentially provide, a more comprehensive look ahead of Rudy so that, he can be planning ahead of time. But the idea is also to be thinking about not only, hardscape, but also for traffic calming.
Temporary stuff.
Yeah, temporary stuff, right? So what does that look like? So again, my hope is that we can establish a framework utilizing the active transportation plan, the complete streets policy, all these various pieces to say, look, if you're not doing reconstruction in a, short term, then temporary solutions would be an option, right? That could be put into place, in order to test and attempt and evolve, right? The thinking, engage residents in the process. But then ultimately, when it's time for full depth reconstruction to, be putting in whatever the new design is, in a more rationalized way, rather than, like I said before, just replacing 50 feet of asphalt with 50 feet of asphalt. So that's going on. They have, again, continued to get requests for traffic calming from various places. Kelso is a regular one. Again, that's not our street. It is a state road, but again, it's an issue that our residents are experiencing. Austin, as I mentioned, is we're gonna ask them to redo that analysis. Second,
Rockland.
Rockland. Yeah, there's quite a few. But the mobility board is really stepping up. They're doing a lot of great work. They are really trying to think through a lot of these challenges. They're already looking at the sidewalks for next year.
Good.
And thinking about, what they would recommend next for the sidewalk policy. So all in all, very good. You guys saw Connect today. Connect has been very busy. There have been a whole variety of initiatives going on. With Connect, there was the mental well-being seminar for municipal staffs that was held in late January. It was exceptionally well attended. Again, the idea is that, again, our staffs, as you all know, work exceptionally hard. And they don't often have the support that they need, to deal with their own mental health, and they get yelled at a lot by a lot of residents. So how do we support them, and how do we provide them the resources necessary? So that was a great seminar that Connect hosted at FIPS. We're going to be doing a seminar or a workshop on tree canopy with Tree Pittsburgh. As you know, there's the solar work happening. Law enforcement assisted diversion continues apace. And there is work on working more closely with transportation groups to drive transportation discussions and get more robust funding into the region around transportation initiatives. So that was just a quick summary. I mean, I could probably go on for another 30 minutes. Connect is exceptionally busy, and I'm very, very proud of the work that they're doing. Oh, and the partnership is doing stuff too, but I should let Jeff talk about that because I've talked a lot.
Let's see. What part are you referring to?
Just in general. So the partnership.
I like going after Commissioner Flynn. I'm so glad he called.
Yeah. What specific part?
What are we talking about? No, so the partnership, the Pennsylvania Downtown Partnership came in, wrapping up the 5-year Main Street
And they were
designation.
reapplying, weren't they?
That is, the goal is to reapply, but the partnership, needs to go through a kind of strategic planning process to do that. That they are all ramping up for that. A lot of good thinking. Again, they have been reflecting, on the last 5 to 10 years of the work that they've been doing to try to go from an all volunteer group. When the last kind of whole process started to where they are today with a part-time executive director, with a lot more professional kind of support in the board. But they know that they have a long way to go in terms of what's next and how to step the organization forward. And really support the business district. So Jeff and I have both been talking to them regularly. They're looking forward to being involved in the zoning rewrite and participating. But they are very much focused on what's the next decade of the partnership look like.
Yes. Very productive conversation. We learned a lot, and I think that I think it's simultaneously going to be some challenges ahead, but also an opportunity to really grow as an organization and gain some independence. And I think it will be fantastic.
So the library at the last library board meeting approved a resolution that would declare our library as a book sanctuary. The concept behind it is basically things that we're already doing. We already have a very robust policy on how we add to our collections and how we keep the choices that our library patrons make private, and that the choices of their children get shared with parents, but is private to other people. So this really does not change anything, but it does reconfirm that we would like to make sure that the library is the kind of place that welcomes a lot of divergent points of view, and that it has the ability to protect people's rights to have conversations and to read varying things. So they're going to bring that in front of us. Not that we have an approval process because they're separate, but just for you all to take a look at it. It'll be at a discussion session coming up, I think.
First or second meeting in March.
Yeah, first or second meeting in March. They're also waiting for some information back from their architect on redoing the children's library area that has been a bit stalled because from what I understand, the architect's busy, but there's that. The Community Engagement Board Residents Academy winds up next week. So another successful session of the Residents Academy. They are also working on the policy for how to include or exclude everybody from holiday. I don't know where they landed because I did not go to the meeting. I felt that they should come up with it themselves and then bring it to us. So we're waiting for that to come back. And Medical Rescue Team South is meeting this week.
Wednesday?
We did get a note from our executive director that there are problems with the maintenance of the ambulances because of their age. That they need to be replaced, one or two.
And the consultant for the Midland Service, they've started they're basically trying to collect data.
Yes.
So they're trying to get some data out of person to
Right.
do their work. And so that'd be another reason this Wednesday that we bug some people to try to get that process going.
Right.
Maybe on Wednesday. Historical Society has an exhibit coming up, tied into a Women's History Month, of women's contributions to Mount Lebanon, not just in government, and a number of obviously public commissioners, but also other, wonderful achievements, so that, I don't have the date of when that goes up in March, but, that exhibit's coming. And Finance Board did not meet in February, so I don't have anything from
Me,
To you.
Parks and Rec met, I think, on Wednesday. I did not attend that meeting, so I don't have an update. Maybe you can.
We're just gonna call this the Andrew update.
School board issued, they did focus groups related to their comprehensive plan. So the focus group report, it's like a 20-page report that goes over all the focus group meetings, all the resident meetings and the results from those meetings, and then the takeaways from those meetings and what they're gonna be working on over the next couple of years. So it covers things like, your obvious school stuff like grades and how important, are those to parents and where do they need to focus to, recreation, sports, IEPs, should they do a cell phone ban policy, stuff like that. So the report was published online, it's publicly available, it's on the school district website. I sent it to all the commissioners. But it's a pretty cool read and they have some pretty clear takeaways of stuff that they're gonna work on. So that's that. Yeah. That's it.
Good. All right.
So much time.
I didn't stop.
I don't know, it's gonna be an hour.
I thought we were gonna get that super early, but that road read.